All right, guys, welcome to the Canarian International Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Mossy. I am an alcoholic.
And my name's Mick, and I am also an alcoholic, and I'm serving as a joint secretary with Mossy. Please join me in a few moments silence to remember why we're the still suffering alcoholic inside and outside the meeting.
And Karen is going to read the preamble. I think Matthew is putting it up.
Hi, hi, I'm Karen. I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholic Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. AA has no dues or fees. It is not aligned with any sect, domination, politics, or organization or institute. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Thank you for allowing me to.
Thank you, Karen. A very warm welcome goes out to any newcomers or anyone returning to Alcoholics Anonymous.
At that, we're going to hand it over to John. John celebrated 30 years sobriety, I believe, on the 16th of July.
Correct.
So he qualifies to be here with us today. My speaker for today had to back out, but she will be speaking another day. So John stepped in because he just needed to do a chair today, I think.
Yeah.
There you go, John. It's over to you, man. You got 45 minutes,
Wow.
but nobody's going to stop you talking. That's
All
it.
right. I don't know if I'll do 45 minutes, but I'll try my best. My name is John. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm from Manchester in the UK. And thank you for Mossy for asking me to do the share. I've already done a chair today. It's like the second time I've been on telly, really. That's what it feels like. I did the share at the convention here in Holland this morning, and I'm very grateful to be asked. I don't know. I mean, really, I'm just a drunk who got lucky, to be honest. That's all I am. I'm a drunk who got lucky, and managed to maintain sobriety. And that's come about because I did as I was told, pretty much for the first time in my life. Somebody told me to do something, and I did it. But that's the kind of middle of the story. I started off in Yorkshire. I'm from York originally. My family, who are all gone now, they've all passed away now. All my family, they're all from the York area, and I was brought up as a kid in the late 50s and the early 60s. I was a child, and it's a bit of a strange kind of upbringing, really. I was brought up by my grandparents, and I didn't see much of my mother. She was out at work most of the time. My grandparents brought me up, and I had a bit of I don't know if it's a sheltered life, they'd call it nowadays, a bit of an awkward life, a cosseted life, I guess. And my grandparents, they loved me right enough, but they had some strange ideas around parenting, some Victorian attitudes. Children should be seen and not heard, and all that kind of rigmarole. The no talk rule. I wasn't allowed to talk outside the house about what was going on outside. And there was a lot of secrets in the family. I was what they call born out of wedlock. And in those days, it was quite a thing. You got shamed quite regularly for it, and there was a lot of shame around it. And I thought it was my fault. You see, that's the omnipotence of a kid. I had that. It was my fault. It was down to me that all this stuff was happening. All the painful stuff, and all the arguments that went on between my mum and my grandmother were my fault. It was all mine, and I had to sort it all out. And I became the mediator, or the mascot, if you like. And as I say, I didn't know any better at the time. That's not what made me an alcoholic, by the way. My old man was a drunkard. He abandoned my mum and I. pretty much that's the only story I've got. There might be something more to it than that, but we didn't see him again. He was he was in the Air Force, I think, or the Army, and I never saw him. I never met my dad, but I believe I was told he was a drinker, and that's why he didn't marry my mum, you know, for whatever reason. So I did okay at school. I passed my 11 plus, and I was quite a bright kid. And I was always told I was bright, you know, and I needed to realise my potential and all that kind of thing. I didn't know what they were talking about, really. I just knew how to add up. And you know, I was pretty good academically. I was all right, you know. But I didn't have any social skills. I never had any social skills. And I wasn't good at kind of sharing anything because I was an only child. I didn't know how to operate in that way. And the school I passed my 11 plus and went to was an all boys school. It was a grammar school in York called Archbishop Aldgate's. And I always remember the first time I got drunk was a school party, and they got a band in. It was quite a well-off students' union, and they got a band in called Caravan. I don't know if anybody remembers them from the 60s. They were quite a prog rock band. And we amalgamated with a girls' school. Mossy's already heard this, so thank you for your patience, Mossy. And all of a sudden, the cider appeared. And of course, it was kind of raucous, and we had an open-air swimming pool. And you can imagine what happened after that. I don't have to draw any pictures. There was people jumping in the pool and people, you know, and I thought I'd arrived. I thought, this is it. All my awkwardness and that kind of inability to socialise just evaporated in a heartbeat, you know, it just disappeared. And so the alcohol did something to me. It gave me a personality that I didn't really own, you know. I just changed into this other person that I thought everybody liked, you know. And I like that projection of that persona that I liked to be liked. I thought I was popular. Instead of being kind of introverted, I was out there, I was extrovert. And what I didn't realise, it was actually taking away my true personality. You know, it removed my real personality. There was kind of a shy kid, to be honest, awkward, you know, a little bit kind of difficult to get in touch with, a little untrusting, a little bit shy, a little bit nervous. And I tried to re-achieve that. But what alcohol did for me straight away, I mean, I should have clicked on, you know, being a bright lad, was it allowed me to lose my liberty, and I lost my teenage years. I got expelled from that school, and from the ages of 15 to 18, I spent in care in an approved school. They called them approved schools in those days. And I got taught a trade. And it was in there that I didn't drink while I was in there. Well, you could go out, and I did, but there was something about drinking that I didn't like at that time. You know, and I tried to avoid it, but everybody else did, so I drank. And I remember going to college in Leeds, and everybody drank. Everybody drank like I drank, and I was training as a chef, incidentally, and it kind of lent itself to drinking. You know, it was always around unlicensed premises. There was always, my first job was at Tetley's Breweries in Leeds. Would you believe? And I used to go in on breakfasts, and there was all these old boys there, you know, a bit like me now. All these old boys sat there having the breakfast, egg and bacon, sausages and all that, and pints of beer. This is at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I used to kind of look at them and think, what's going on here? But I didn't realise they'd been on all night. It was their end of their night shift, you know. I couldn't quite work it out. But anyway, it came to pass for me that thing, slightly different area. So I don't want to get too bogged down in that. So I just drank after that. You know, I never gave it a second thought, and I did okay. I worked in hotels up and down the country. I went clubbing. I did all those things, you know, and I didn't really consider alcohol to be a problem for a long time, until it started taking things away from me, which it did. I started to lose things imperceptibly at first. My psychological health, physical health. I stopped doing the things that I used to like doing. Like I used to like to play rugby. I played tennis. I played rugby. All those things seemed to go on a back burner. They just kind of evaporated over time. And I had relationships, but they never seemed to last. We talk about, I think it says in the book, the bedevilments. You know, we were prey to misery and we couldn't continue with relationships. You know, and that's where I was at then. I couldn't maintain a relationship because I was too self-centered, absolutely self-centered and selfish, and all those things that we find out, you know, in active alcoholism. And as I say, I travelled up and around the country, and I went to London, I worked in Jersey, I worked in South Wales, a place called Tenby, as a chef, and I liked it. I enjoyed working as a chef. It was a kind of noble trade. I don't think I put my hand in my pocket once for a drink for years, you know. And I remember a restaurant manager called Alistair once. He said, "You know, John, you cook better when you're drunk." It was like a green light, you know, like a green light to me, really, stuff like that. And as I said, I didn't think anything of it. As far as I was concerned, this was my life, and my life was going to carry on like that forever. You know, there was going to be no stop. Why would I want to stop? Where was I going with this? You know, but I'd always tried to find out a new start. There was always a new start on the horizon for me. You know, I'd kind of burn my bridges in one town, you know, with a relationship and a job, and then need to move to another town. And I always kind of escaped by the skin of my teeth, really. You know, I used to think, well, that was a close shave. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And I got out anyway, and I moved to Scarborough. I got a job in Scarborough, and I don't know what happened there, but something changed with my drinking. My relationship with alcohol changed a little bit, and it progressed. And I started getting into trouble with my employers, doing silly things like setting off fire alarms, you know, so we could all get out of the place, you know, so all the chefs could get out of the kitchen and go to the bar, that kind of stuff, you know, just crazy stuff. And of course, I got the sack from there, me and a pal of mine, and we rang up a hotel in Manchester, well, South Manchester, called the Craster Court. And we both got taken on as chefs there, and I came across, I've been in Manchester ever since. That was 1982. And my drinking continued, didn't really think anything of it. It was just, I don't know, like an occupational hazard, getting the sack, losing things. It was like, oh, all right, I'll start again. There was no kind of thought about it. I just carried on. It was like, that was my powerlessness. I couldn't see that the alcohol was creating all these problems for me. I just, that's all I couldn't see past that. That was the fogginess in my head. And I got to this job in Manchester, in South Manchester. And I was there a couple of years. I met a girl, Pauline, and we got married. Sadly, Pauline passed away 8 years ago now. We were divorced at the time, but we were friends. I'd made amends to her, you know, we'd made amends. And that was in 85. I got married, got divorced in 92. And in the end, we were friends, you know, and I'm really sorry about the fact that I missed the funeral. I'd have loved to have gone, but there was no way I could do it. And I still feel sad about that, really, you know. So that's something I've never shared, actually. So I got to Manchester, met Pauline, we got married, had a conventional thing, did okay. I got a head chef's job in a hotel. It was my ambition to be a head chef by the time I was 30, and I realised that I was a head chef at this hotel, and I was 30 years of age, and but I was kind of stark raving mad, if you know what I mean. I was kind of nuts, trying to do this job and trying to kind of juggle a house and a marriage and all that stuff all the time, being in a state of kind of drunkenness. You know, and I did that for years, and I've just had a picture flash up in my head, so I'm going to share it. And I remember Pauline questioning me. She questioned my drinking sometimes. She kind of loved me. She really loved me and cared about me, you know, and she wouldn't challenge me. or anything. She always thought this situation would go away. And I kind of, I was outside one night. It was absolutely slinging it down. It's known for it as Manchester, you know, the rain. And it was slinging it down, and we had a wall at the side that was crumbling. And I was drunk, and I was there, and I had my shirt off, and I was trying to push this wall over for some reason, you know, because I was telling everybody around. They were also, "What are you doing, John? What's happening?" And my neighbours came out. Says, "This wall's dangerous, so I'm trying to push it down." That's the kind of nuttiness that went on. You know, these ideas I got fixated on, and anyway, it always comes to mind when I start talking about that, about the craziness of alcoholism, the thoughts that I had, you know, the things that I was trying to do. And I kind of asked her, what's an alcoholic? She didn't know. She said, "Oh, it's somebody that can't stop drinking." But that's what she said. So I thought, that's all right, because I could stop. I could have a day off. I could, you know, but then I'd go into a bit of a withdrawal. I didn't know what a withdrawal was. And then I'd start having a bit of a rattle. So I'd need to drink again, because that's all I knew what to do. That's what I'd do to fend off the withdrawal symptoms. And that went on for years, you know. I got good jobs. I lost jobs too. And I kind of carried on with my life, and it was all right, you know, it was okay. But other things started to happen then, you know. It talks in the big book about there was an affair. I had an affair with a girl at work, and Pauline was heartbroken. And we got divorced, you know. She kind of finally kind of said, you know, "You're not in this marriage, John, you know, that this is it." And she took me to court and got the divorce, and it was very amicable and okay, and everything was split in half, and it was all good in that respect. There's no real animosity there. And I kind of went on my merry way until about 1992, I think. And I went on holiday. I met a girl in Corfu called Gail, and we got together for a while, and I went over to live with her in Blackpool, a place called Carlton, just outside Blackpool, and I got a job over there. And Gail was a different kettle of fish. She wouldn't put up with my drinking. In fact, she challenged me regularly about it, and smoking as well. She didn't like. She had a young lad, Wesley, not my son, but hers, who I thought the world of, actually. And she challenged me often about my drinking, and said, "I can understand it being hot when you come out of the kitchen, John, but why don't you go and have an orange squash at the bar? You know, like, as that was the most natural thing in the world." And I couldn't kind of perceive that as being a normal thing, you know. It was like an alien concept, really, to go and have an orange squash at the bar. I mean, what would people think, for God's sake, you know? So that relationship ended, and I don't know, I came to a bit of an impasse with alcohol then. And, you know, it says in the book, doesn't it, you know, I couldn't live with it and I couldn't live without it. And I wanted to stop, and I didn't know how to stop. And I didn't know you had to say something to somebody. I didn't know you had to kind of utter the words. And I tried to curtail it a little bit on my own. And that was hell, trying to stop drinking on my own. And of course I failed. And I went back to, I used to have an old Nissan Cherry. I don't know how I'm doing for time, Mossy. I'm all right now.
You're all right.
Yeah. I used to have an old Nissan Cherry, a red one. I remember driving from Manchester to Blackpool once, and I looked in the rearview mirror of the car, and looking back, there was a pair of, looks like coals looking back at me, black eyes, staring back at me that were dead. And I saw myself for the first time for a long time, you know, the reality of my drinking. And I was terrified. I was scared to death, to be honest. And for some reason, I don't know why, I said the Lord's Prayer out loud in the car, and I got the words all jumbled up. You know, I still get them jumbled up as it goes, but I got them all jumbled up. But I remember saying and stressing and emphasizing, "Thy will be done." I said, "Thy will be done." And I remember saying it with fervency. You know, I meant it. I meant it. And I got back to work at the ranch house in Blackpool, and the first person that I disclosed my drinking problem, as I saw it, I didn't know what alcoholism was, was my boss, Margaret Flint. And I said, Margaret, I'd gone out in the night after the shift, and I'd screamed at the sky, what is wrong with me? Because I started to withdraw from the booze again, and I didn't want to drink. So I was kind of between that rock and the hard place, you know. I couldn't not drink, and I couldn't drink. And I said to her, Margaret, I think I've got a problem with alcohol. And she, bless her heart, she was only about 4'6". She turned and she looked at me and she said, well, you better not drink it, John, had you? You better not drink it, she said. And I kind of looked at her, and there was no wriggle room. And I was just in the right place to receive that. And something inside me snapped. It was like a physical pain inside me that just went. I see it now as a change of heart, you know. And I went, and I said, and I need help. I forgot that this morning. I forgot lots of things this morning. And I said, I need help. And she said, we'll help you, John. I said, I've got nowhere to live. And they had a big, Margaret and Brian, they had a big 5-bedroomed house. Said, go and get in one of them rooms up there and get yourself right. For, you know, they thought that just stopping drinking would do the job, you know, be okay. So I went up, and I remember going to bed that night and waking up, and I felt like a new person, to be honest. My worldview had changed, and I slept like a baby that night. Now, I don't know if it's just because I'd been honest with somebody, that I admitted that I'd got a problem with alcohol. That's all it says in the first step. I've got to admit it. You know, I don't have to accept it straight away. I didn't know what alcoholism was anyway. I admitted I had a problem with alcohol, and that my life was totally unmanageable because I'd asked for help. And it kind of happened like that. And Margaret became a bit of a confidant for me, this woman. I kind of trusted her, and I trusted another human being. And that allowed for something else to happen. You know, my trust kind of opened up with other people. And I learned to talk. I learned to socialise a little bit. But I was still kind of raving nuts, you know. My head was still screaming at me for about 4 or 5 months. And anyway, I left the ranch because I'd still got the house in Manchester. And I came back over to Manchester, and I got a job at Kendall's. I don't know if anybody knows it, but it's a big department store in Manchester as a demonstration chef. And this usually gets a laugh, so prepare yourself. I hope somebody's listening. My signature dish was called Jamaican bananas, right? Which is bananas flambéed in rum with butter and sugar. You make a caramel and you serve it. But the idea is that you set fire to these bananas and you buy these overpriced pans. It's usually women from Wilmslow and Hale and such places. And it was a good number, you know, and there was talk of Granada TV and working with Ainsley Elliott and Anthony Worrell Thompson and Brian Turner and all these people, because I was quite flamboyant, for flamboyant Reed crackers, you know, the Keith Floyd wasn't in it, you know, I was a bit balmy really. And everything about it. And I've set off to make this massive extravaganza, this food around the world extravaganza. Anyway, and it just as it says in the big book, you know, we look as though we've got a bright future in front of us, and we make this great big plan, and then all of a sudden I just pulled it all down. You know, I just kind of broke. You know, and I had a brush with alcohol in food. That's all it was. It was just a brush. And what it did, it didn't set off the compulsion to drink again. What it did was make me so depressed I wanted to take my own life because I was scared. And I didn't know I was terrified because I've been terrified for such a long time. I didn't know I was scared, you know. And I went to the top of the roof of Kendall's, which is quite high, and looked down onto the pavement below on Deansgate. And a little voice said, "Why didn't you go and ask for help, John?" Like a voice of reason. "Why didn't you go and ask for some help with this?" And I did, because I thought I was the only person in the world that felt like I was feeling at that time, you know. And I did. I went to Alcohol Concern, and I went to the alcohol teams, and I went to another organ, Manchester Council on Alcoholism. And I also went to my GP, Jacqueline Chang, who was a non-alcoholic trustee on the board of AA in York. And she pointed me at AA. And she said, why don't you give AA a try, knowing full well that I was going to go there, you know. So I did, and I walked out of my job. I had my chef's jacket on. God, I don't see it now. Executive chef John Young with blue ribbon around the what's it, all that business, you know, which I qualified for. And I walked down out of Kendall's, down through Manchester, kind of, and to the office of Alcoholics Anonymous, which was on Portland Street then. And I knocked on the door, and just to give you a picture of where it is, it's sandwiched in between a Chinese restaurant and a brothel, right? So it's not in the most salubrious part of town, if you can get a picture of that. And it didn't smell so sweet either, I remember that. And this guy came out and he 12-stepped me, and he's called Fire Eater Bob. He's been gone a long time now as Bob. And he 12-stepped me there and then, and he said, "Do you want to go to a meeting tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to go." And a guy took me to a meeting. He came round to the house, and his name was John Ford. He always referred to himself by his full name, and he'd been a soldier, and he was 20 years sober at the time. And he said he referred to himself as a sober alcoholic. And he said, "Do you want to come to a meeting? Would you like to come to a meeting?" And God bless John, he took me to 7 meetings on the bounce, because he could see that I was terrified, you know. And I was also medicated as well at that time. They gave me Ativan, a drug called Ativan, and another drug as well that I don't know. But I was like a zombie wandering around. And he took me to my first meeting, which was at the Millbrook Centre in Stockport. And I heard something that night that kept me coming, that made me come back the night after. And it was the truth. It was the truth about me. It was the truth uttered from other people that I connected with, you know. And all of a sudden I had some hope that other people had been through what I'd been through. I couldn't tell you consciously that that's what I'd thought on the first night, but I can see it looking back. That's what I connected with. It was somewhere to go. It was like something it was so magnetic to me that I couldn't not go. And it's still the same. That's still the same today. It's because my survival mechanism had been, I don't know, reconstructed, I guess. Because when I was drinking, I was a person that didn't care. I was a person that didn't care about myself, what happened to myself, or what happened to anybody else for that matter. And I remember that meeting that night, and many nights since. And some of them lads are still around, you know, and I count them as good friends today. And I kicked about for 5 or 6 months in the fellowship, and I got worse mentally, psychologically. And I bumped into another guy called Ken Todman, and he said, "John, you know, there's a diamond in this fellowship." He said, "It's a 12-step program of recovery," and he said, "You need to get on it." He could see I was shaking, I was in the meetings, I was in pain, and he took me to a meeting where they spoke about the big book, about the 12-step program. And there was those people in that room that night, and I'll see them all. There was only a dozen of them in that room. And they said, you know, they told me about the illness of alcoholism, what it was, and how to recover from it. And they exemplified it by their forthrightness and their courage of their convictions. And would I have it? Yes, I would. I would have that, please. You know, because I'd never come across that before, that strength. And I've been, as I say, I've been in AA, and I was kind of not hooked into it, but I got into the conversations like, "My life's worse than yours." You know, that one, you know, this is, you know, my world is more problematic than your world. It's kind of like a competition almost. And I started to hear some positivity from these guys and a girl, as it happens. And I got a sponsor there called Don, a Scotsman. And he took me through the steps. He took me through the book, and I did the 4th and 5th step with him in about 5 weeks. You know, I did fears, resentments, harms and hurts, and sex harms in one at a time over a period of a month. And something else changed in me. I don't know exactly what it was. It's just that I felt emotionally stirred. There was something inside me that kind of broke free again. You know, I didn't feel as trapped emotionally. And I'm still emotionally illiterate at the best of times. I can't tell you what exact feelings I'm feeling. It's usually mixed emotions that I've got going on about most things. But and I missed Don. He was my first sponsor, and he passed away in 1999. And he took me through the steps in 95. And I got another sponsor then called Colin, and he passed away in 9 years ago now, Colin. And I've only ever had 3 sponsors, and they've all died, unfortunately. You know, I'm sponsorless now, and I kind of miss that closeness, if you like. What are you laughing at?
Nothing, none of the sponsee.
Bloody giggling at. But you know, I've got good friends. I've got 5 or 6 decent friends in AA that I've got a relatively deep kind of understanding with, and they know me in and out, all the dark stuff and all that business. And gradually over the years, you know, I've become more and more open to this process. It didn't happen straight away for me. You know, I've had to kind of learn experientially through making my mistakes. And if you were to ask me, I haven't learned by all my mistakes. If I'd have learned by all my mistakes, I would be a wizard. And it's quite clear that I'm not. You know what I mean? I'm not a wizard of any kind. I'd be kind of hovering above the table, you know, if I'd learned by all my mistakes. But I've learned by some of them. I've learned by a few of them, you know, and I've managed to have a good life. And as Mosley so correctly said, you know, I was 30 years last month. And it kind of struck me, you know, that not only I'm a bit slow really, that actually this does work. It does work, despite my protestations, despite my intrusive thinking still, despite my kind of failure, despite my flaws, this does work. If I've got, and I'd love to hear it in the preamble, I had to check it because I thought it had been changed, an honest desire. This doesn't take wanting to be sober. This takes desire. You need to have an honest desire to want to stop drinking. And I've still got that honest desire because my life is far better than it was. I didn't have a life before. I was absent in my own life, and I'm present in my own life today, you know. And I shared it this morning. It wasn't a big deal to anybody else, but when I was working in hotels, I didn't have any responsibilities. I didn't pay a bill because I just lived in the hotel. I ate in the hotel. I kind of drank in the hotel. So all my money was free. I didn't pay a bloody bill. Didn't know how to pay a bill. When I was married, Pauline looked after all the bills and the household stuff. But now well, not just. A couple of years ago, I paid my mortgage off. So I've got my own property. I've got my own flat in Manchester. I retired last year. At the end of 2023, I'm relatively solvent. I love going to Lanzarote. I have a real affinity with Lanzarote. I love Costa Teguise because it's flat and there's plenty of toilets. That's always a winner for me. He likes that at all, doesn't he? It's always a winner for me, is that it's flat and the taxis are cheap. The taxi's cheap, they're great. So I love going to Lanzarote, and I'm going again on the October the 15th. And I try and get away about 4 or 5 times a year. I mean, that concept for me was impossible. That idea of getting away that many times a year was like ridiculous, you know. And I love going to conventions. As I say, I've got some great friends in this fellowship. And, you know, I had a bit of sadness, well, a lot of sadness. My last surviving relative, my mum died 2 years ago. And I didn't share it this morning, and I felt as though I cheated her a bit by not saying it. She had a heart attack 8 years ago, and I've been a carer since for her, and I was able to be a son to her for 28 years in this fellowship sober, you know. And for the last 8 years of her life, I was an official carer for her, and I went up every weekend through COVID from Manchester to York. Got her shopping in because she couldn't go out and all that stuff. Even the police stopped me, you know. There was a thing about going from Manchester, and the police kind of got a grip on me. And I just said, I'm going to sort my mother. You can arrest me if you want. But they didn't. So I've got that kind of, and I have no regrets, you know, because I led her a merry dance when I was drinking. You know, she didn't put her handbag on the floor when I was drinking. She didn't, you know, because that's what I was like. I was a little shit, to be honest. And at the end, I was in charge of all of her affairs. She signed all her affairs over to me, and she trusted me with them, with everything. And I didn't let her down, not once, you know. And I was a bit worried about the organisation of all the funeral and all that stuff, because my organisational skills aren't brilliant, to be honest. But I got help, you know, because I know how to ask for help nowadays, and I got help with it. And I was with her on the last day in hospital. Ironically, she died with COVID, not from it. She contracted COVID in the hospital, and she died from it, with it. Sorry, but it was a heart problem that saw her off. And I had to bribe her to go and get the jabs initially. You know, Kentucky Fried Chicken was what she was bribed with, and Chinese chicken and mushrooms. That was she wouldn't move out of a chair if I didn't get her anything like that. Anyway, on the last day, and she knew it was all over, you know. And the consultant said she's not gonna make it. She's not gonna make it through this. She had a respirator on and all that stuff, and she took it off herself, like, and she said, "Enjoy your life, son." You know, she said, "Enjoy your life." And every time I feel a little bit kind of down and start feeling a bit depressed about that and sad, I remember her voice, and I remember what she said to me, you know. And you got to do what your mother tells you, you know, that kind of deal. So, yeah, there was something else, wasn't there? So, yeah, I managed to organise the funeral. And again, you know, a couple of pals in AA, Craig and Pat from Manchester, who I've known 30 years, ever since I've been around, really. They kind of took me up to the crematorium in New York, and they supported me through it. I didn't have to ask them. They were just there for me, you know. They were just there, like proper. And I try and be a friend like that nowadays. It kind of comes naturally, you know, because I've got a bit of compassion for my fellow man, and I've got AA to thank for that. Anything else, John? Oh yeah, I've started a new job. I've started a new job as a caretaker, mental health caretaker. 3 lads in a supported housing setup, and they all use and drink. They're not going to get sober, these guys. They've got severe enduring mental health. So one of them's got brain damage and what have you. But, you know, God's kind of clever, right? Because I've gone from somebody that's been awkward and shy, and he's turned me into somebody that can communicate with people that are very difficult to communicate with. You know, when I first came round, when I was going through psychosis and all those wonderful things that we go through in withdrawal, I thought I was going to end up spending the rest of my days on a psychiatric ward, you know, forever. I thought that's where I was headed. And God's got a sense of humour too, because the last 8 years I've worked on a psychiatric ward, you know, and I've been able to communicate with people that are damaged, you know, and hopefully be of use to those people, you know, in whatever way, just treating them like human beings. That's all people want. They want to be treated like a human being. And these 3 guys that I work with now, even though they have me over all the time, you know, and they think I don't know they're having me over, but they're having me over. Can I have an extra £5 because I've got to buy something from a charity shop? I get this every day, you know. So really, you know, that kind of thing. But I'm okay with it. You know, it's all right. I can give and take a little bit now. I don't have to be as rigid as I was when I first came round. You know, I was like that. I was like made of wood when I came round. And I've softened a bit, and my heart's softened a bit, you know. And I'm guessing by you looking at your watch.
No, you keep going.
Is it? Right. I don't know, because I can keep going. There's Elaine on here as well. I've just seen Elaine, my friend from Sheffield. Hello, darling. And I've worked with a lot of people, you know, in the years that I've been sober. I've worked in services in the Northwest for 26 years, I think now, about 26 years. And I've worked with a lot of men, you know, on the program, and I've always revisited my own stuff when I've done that. It's always made my own stuff much clearer to me, and it's revealed more. You know, more's been lifted up, and it's all been about healing from when I was that big, you know, all since I was a little tiddler, and that still goes on. You know, I still get insights into back then. I mean, it's bloody 60 odd years ago now, you know. And I was 38 when I came into this fellowship, and I'm 70 next year. You know, I know it's difficult to believe when you look at me, but that's
Not really, no. Not really.
but that's the truth of it. Anyway, I think I've said enough now, and I'm drying up, and I'm dying for a drink of water, and I can't see a tap anywhere. So I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm going to thank Mossy for asking me. And you still owe me a cup of coffee, and I'm coming over to Lanzarote from the 4th to the 15th of October this year. So I'll expect a large cappuccino at some stage. Thank you.
Grab to a picture. Item paid for. Okay.
Yeah, drop the water. I'm spitting. That was it. Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, John. That was fantastic. I got a lot of identification from your story, and I've no regrets.
No.
And you mentioned no regrets.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Uh-huh.
I had the opportunity to make amends to my mother, my father, and I got the opportunity to learn how to be a father, a son, and you know, I think I do pretty good. I do okay. I'm blessed to be in this program. I'm blessed to be sober. I remember your sobriety date is 16th of July. My sobriety date is 12th of July, 1989. And so I celebrated 35 years.
Fantastic.
And at that, I'm going to hand you over to Mick because there's somebody knocking at the door. Mick, take it away, dude.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mossy. My name's Mick, and I am an alcoholic, and by the grace of God in this fellowship, I've not tasted the drink. John, fantastic. I identified with so much of your story. I kept putting my thumb up to say, yeah, I done that. Yes, I done that. You know, I worked in a brewery, but I worked for 40 years there, 13 drinking and 27 in sobriety and that. But I still need people to talk to, people to, you know, because we were on about this a little earlier when we first started on met up in this this evening, and I was saying about how my life is, you know, today, how wonderful it is through this fellowship and God of my understanding, and it's getting better, you know, and all I've done is not drink and go to meetings and listening to people and trying to practice all this in all my affairs. And I've got a wonderful life thanks to you people. Hey, yet I fought against it. Anyway, that's enough for me.
And especially thank John for flying out to the Netherlands here to do this for us today. Yeah, I have to pay him back now in Lanzarote in a few weeks' time, but it's all good.
Yeah.
So take it away there, Mick, and we'll wrap her up.
Hold it. That's it. I forgot to unmute myself. The promises are going to be read by Carol with an E.
Yeah, thank you. The promises. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That our feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Thank you, Carol. I'd like to do. I'd like to thank the speaker, the co-hosts, and Catherine, timekeeper, Karen for the preamble, and of course, Carol for the promises. Yellow card. Who you see here?
What you hear here?
When you leave here?
Let it stay here.
And right. And would John please lead us out with the Serenity Prayer, using the word God as each of us define it.
Sure, mate. Thanks for asking me, Mossy. Using the God of your own understanding, God.
God, grant us
Grant
the
us
serenity
to accept things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can,
we can,
and
the wisdom to know the difference.
God bless you.
You keep coming
Bless you
back.
all.
Thank God, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.